reading at the meeting or the comments, and there's someone who had gotten in the line, and she said, well, this was maybe 4 or 5 days after they were treated. She said, well, actually, when I went up there, they kind of pushed back like this, you know, when you say they fall out. So in the black churches too, I guess when the white churches too, you hear those other kind of sidebar comments, and even people making comments like, oh, if you didn't, y'all must not be whatever because you didn't shout or whatever like that coming
Right.
from.
I've heard that too.
Right.
He said, well, I guess I missed it, you know.
Right.
So everybody else must be blessed and full forever in their life, forever and ever. They got so that kind of tug of war, and maybe that was part of that breaking down part that was coming. That also was what the trip I was on. How they had someone who was, I forgot what they call him, break them down. He was the owner, not an owner, it was a.
Oh, the break. Who on?
Breakers or something. Had whatever.
His job was to break the spirit of the
break
enslaved
the spirit
Africans.
up.
Yeah.
And whoever kept running away and coming back, whatever, they
Right.
break his spirit. They sent him to, oh, you gonna get it. They sent him to that person to
Right.
break that spirit. But it's really something how they really studied how to break spirits.
Even that
someone's
language.
spirit. And they
Yeah.
took it very, seriously. They're gonna be the one to do. That's how they break the spirits, you know. But just like they break spirits, they can build spirits in terms of even pastors who get up there commenting about people. Oh, the Holy Ghost, you didn't get it. You should be laid out. I'm not trying to get you. All those kinds of things you hear
Right.
as you're sitting there. And like you said, you know, it's why are they saying all that? What makes you think you got the Holy Spirit? I know that the Lord, you people talk like, Lord, only speak to them and all that kind of stuff. So it's a mess, and a quagmire of comments that are made regarding the whole thing. But that's why you must know yourself.
Well, and that's why, and I also when they coming right to you, let me just say welcome to all of our Periscope folks. Welcome to the class as well. We already got started. As you may be able to see, the conversation's already moving, and we're just talking about, some of the things that we have checked out by way of this book, Must God Remain Greek? Afro Cultures and God Talk by Robert Hood. We've been reading this book for the past, 4 or 5 weeks. And last week we started watching this DVD entitled Ancestral Voices, Esoteric African Knowledge. Really exciting piece. We're going to pick up part 2 of watching this video today. When we get to that point, we'll stop the Periscope. But we do encourage you to pick up this video if you can. But we're sitting here now talking about similarities and distinctions between Christianity and African traditional religions, African spiritualities, and seeing how some of the things that we have experienced customarily in churches have great parallel to what we've seen so far even about Yoruba, Akan, Kendoble, and other African spiritualities. One example that Brother Cunningham brought up was about speaking in tongues, and how speaking in tongues in the black church tradition is not seen as something that is alien or foreign or, something to be, fearful of, or even getting happy, as we say in our tradition. When folks get happy and start dancing and jumping and waving in the spirit in our churches, we don't perceive that to be something that should be feared or something that is demonic or something that is, anti-God in any way. And so the parallel that we're drawing is that even as we've been studying just a little bit on this journey of African religions and African spirituality, that when we see people dancing in the spirit in Yoruba or in the Akan, we have greater pause today and resisting the urge to just write it off as something that is not of God. Bakari shared a few moments ago that if we were to put the video on mute and watch old-fashioned Baptist service and side by side watch a Yoruba or Akan ceremony, and you put it on mute, with the exception of maybe some attire and clothing, in terms of the action that we see, it's very similar action. So the premise that I put forward that we're discussing now is that I see commonality when it comes to African spirituality the world over. No matter the language, no matter the religion, no matter the context of where African people are found, the thing that I wrestle with, the thing that I look at and I'm excited about digging deeper into, the question is, well, the not so much question, but phenomena is that African people, no matter where we are, have a very similar spirit language. That's what I'm putting forward. That's what I'm investigating with my fellow scholars in this room as we all are digging in together. And so the piece, Sister Shirley, that you raised about, the slave breakers is interesting because, I think I agree with you. I think it is something that we shouldn't overlook, that there was a real science behind breaking the spirit of an enslaved African. They had a whole, if we want to put it in this way, there was a whole department that focused solely on breaking spirits, because our enslavers, or the enslavers of our ancestors, knew that the condition of the spirit had a relationship with the quality and output of the work. That if the spirit is strong, that it would interfere with their system of making money and profiting off of that person. But if the spirit was weak, it was easier to utilize that African in service to white supremacy. So weak spirit translates to a benefit to the system of white supremacy. And now I'm not just talking about back then. I'm not just talking about back then. Let me say it again for Periscope. Periscope, listen up. A weak spirit in an African person seems to translate to a benefit to the system of white supremacy. So you can have black people in positions of authority, let's say politically, corporately, higher education institutions, whatever. You can have black faces in those positions. Yep. But as long as their spirit is weak, they will still serve the system of racism, white supremacy, as long as their spirit is weak. They will do what they've been programmed to do based on whoever downloaded the program. Yeah. And the system of racism, white supremacy has, let me turn this around, y'all. They're just looking at y'all. The system of racism, white supremacy gives benefits to those who follow the program. So, and then keep on pushing forward, there is when an African person is high in spirit, it is perceived as a threat to their system. If your spirit's too high, wait a minute, I can't use it. Somebody told me today, because I'm working with a lot of schools, or talks with a lot of schools about bringing my Freedom School program to their school. And somebody told me just today, said, Reverend Brown, you're a nice guy, but when you go in there and meet with new schools, just turn that blackness down some. Told me today, and I love, good friend, I love her. But and she was in her mind trying to help me, because she's saying if you walk in leading with that black stuff, it's going to scare the principals, and they're not going to want to have you come. And of course, I'm pushing back like, no, they're going to take me how I am. But, I get what she was saying. And really, that's what a lot of black folk are told, no matter your industry or area, your business or whatever, we are told to turn that down. Because too much of that is perceived as a threat to those who might give us a job, who might give us a grant. So you got black folk in Periscope, you know this too. You got black folk all over the country who are writing grants right now and trying to write around the blackness. You got black folk who are preparing for job interviews and who are trying to, getting their hair different, getting a nice red, white, and blue suit and tie, and, anything that they can get to get an advantage within the system of racism and white supremacy. That same thinking also translates to our spiritual condition as well, in that you are seen to be, there's some black churches who have, unfortunately, embraced this notion that if our worship gets too loud, too raucous, too demonstrative, right, that is a sign of unpolished, uneducated, it's those kind of black people. So that whole class stuff is definitely in our community too, right? And so, and the louder you are, if y'all shout all the time, oh, they uneducated. They don't even know what they shout about. They don't even. And then to your earlier point, Sister Shirley, you talked about the conversation that you can hear when people say, even our churches say stuff like, oh, no, they're not really in the spirit. That wasn't real. They didn't, I think that is one of the evidences of how a high value that black folks place on authentic and genuine connection with the Spirit of God. Like that is the cherished thing. Like there's a whole song. Let it be real, real, real. Let it be real, real, real. Whatever you do for the Lord, let it be real. One of them old foot stomping kind of songs. But the whole point of it was, back to your point, if it ain't real, don't do it. Now, you ain't real, sit down somewhere. Again, I think that's one of the signs of how much black folk tend to value authentic connections with God. And even those comments, at their root, what they're really saying is, I just want it to be real. We value authentic. You come in here faking, we're going to talk about you. Because the fake, don't come here with the fake. We gotta live 9 to 5 Monday through Friday with the fake. When you come up in here, let it be real and give your best to the Lord. Austin Monet, won't you had a... it's on me. Okay. She don't want to be on camera. We're going to just listen.
Yeah, it was just a small comment about what you were saying before, and I was just thinking about how, like, what you were explaining about the connection between the way we worship and the way people in Africa worshiped over time. Like, it just makes me think of, like, spiritual genetics and, like, how, like, I don't know, like, maybe, like, we inherited aspects of our spirituality, and the way we express it is, we inherit it. And one, like, an example that I can relate to or remember is this gospel group or a choir from a church. They're called Shekinah Glory Live, or Shekinah Glory. But
yep.
The CD, Shekinah Glory Live, is like super anointed, like amazing. And like there's portions of it. It's very long, but it's like there's one 14-minute song. Like it's
is that
crazy.
the Yes song?
Yeah, that one. But on the part one is clap shout. Yeah.
Okay.
We used to dance to that in my old dance ministry, and there's like before that there's like reprises and like before like the intros that are just very long. It's like some of it is not even really English. It's like so much just like it's so much tongue speaking or speaking in tongues. That and it, to me, after a while, it does sound like another language, and it makes when I listen to it, it sounds like an African language to me, and it's like African Americans, but like it's so much. It's maybe it's just like coming, it's just coming from the whatever marimba, the spirit or whatever, and it just sounded like a real language, but it was not something I think that is systematized. It was just coming from their spirit, and and also like when I went to South Africa like 5 years ago, I can remember I went with my school, which was like I was with like mostly white women around my age, and then my other friend, we were the only black girls in the group besides the professor. But like when we went, there was a lot of dancing, like to celebrate us coming and to teach and stuff. And they did like a ceremony where they danced and stuff. And then when we were leaving, like the older women started dancing, and I just wanted to like get up and go over and start dancing with them. But I was just like kind of felt like, oh, the white people were just gonna be like, what are you doing? So like I didn't. But so I just felt like a connection, and I did dance with the kids when they started dancing in the classroom. But that connection from like me over in America and going back there and being able to connect with them, even though I didn't understand a lot of what they were saying, was really cool. And I think that
that's a great tie-in with this larger issue around, African people and the ways that our spirituality manifests itself. The genetic piece is really exciting to me because, the number of scholars and research now is beginning to catch up to what people have been saying for a while, is that there were some things passed down to us, even through our genes and through our DNA as well. And you heard something about that?
No, I was just gonna say how the connection and kind of like a confirmation, because it is spiritual, because it's familiar to us. We weren't present at the time. We weren't even born to a lot of this, but it's familiar. It feels like it's a part of us. It's familiar. So it's spiritual.
I mean, the genetic piece too that trips me out is like women are born with all of the eggs that they will ever have. So it's like when you think about it, even when you were microscopic, you in some way, shape, or form, it's kind of like that precedent was there. You were still,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like the way that we are familiar with the phrase like God knew you even when you were in your mother's womb, So just that level of ancestral memory that carries over, I definitely think that's the case. For me, another parallel also is baptism and the importance of water in many African traditional religions. So when growing up in a Baptist church, I mean, it's just what you're accustomed to. You just get used to baptism. But then studying some of these traditions more and more, understanding how important it is, how important water is. And so within the Baptist tradition, seeing another way that we, as a people, like included that water in the process to kind of hold on to what we knew, but had to disguise it, maybe, and put it under cover to kind of slip it in without getting chastised even more.
Yeah, so familiar and the aspects pieces, yes. And so, connecting those pieces makes me remember this, something I truly believe, that when it comes to African spirituality, when it comes to this is your stuff whether you want to claim it or not. It's yours. And those of you watching on Periscope, y'all feel free to raise your questions or whatever as well. But this is our stuff. Whether we understand it all, whether we know every line of it, it's our stuff. To your point, Sharon, and it's very familiar, right? All of it doesn't feel like some strange, foreign, alien thing, because I think at a level that's deeper than even our consciousness, something deeper within us knows this is yours, this is mine. We've been here, but almost like a spiritual deja vu. Like, wait a minute. Y'all know about the physical deja vu. When you're doing stuff, you're like, wait a minute. I just did this same thing yesterday. And when I did this, you said that same thing yesterday. What? Wait a minute. What's going on? And there's all kind of theories about why these deja vu moments happen. Perhaps we also have spiritual deja vu moments where our ancestors perhaps were doing a certain motion, singing a certain song, or can I say even singing a certain chord? Because I think even in a musical piece, I think there's certain chords that our ancestors sang that I think found continuance in some of the so-called Negro spirituals, and that find continuance even in our present day singing and our worship. There's certain chords going together. I think the Hammond organ, which is a very important instrument in the black church tradition, and certain chords signal the move of spirit. It's like, okay, all right, it's about to get the climax in this sermon here now, because the organ hit that chord. I think even there are certain chords that it's like we've been singing that chord for a long time. And that chord does something, opens up something in realms perhaps that we don't fully understand, but genetically, in our spiritual DNA, our ancestors hit that same chord and something opened up. And so, our job in this journey, in this study, we're about to get some food. Our job in this study is to One, pull some scales off of our spiritual eyes and stop being so quick to demonize everything that we don't understand, right? That's one. Two, to see the ways in which Christianity, even how we worship and even how we experience it and encounter it now, is African at its essence and root. Not just in how we worship, not just in how we show up with it, but I'm saying the faith itself. Does anybody remember, to Bakari's point about baptism, does anybody remember the story in the Bible about how God created water? There's no creation story about God creating water. The firmament is listed and the separation of the waters, but water itself. So perhaps, I'm just raising that as an example. If there's no even creation story about how God took molecules, took 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen, put it together to create water, the assumption was water has always been here. And if water has always been here, the practices associated with water, like baptism, some spiritual concept of water has always been here. Water, the very essence, not just of the created order, but even ourselves, water, made up of mostly water. And so I'm just pulling out these things just to help us to see that even in its foundation, my premise is Christianity is an African traditional religion, which was used and perverted, my position, by enslavers, by wicked, greedy, unjust, unrighteous system that was put forward by people who subscribed to that and enslaved us with our own stuff. Enslaved us with a perversion of our own stuff, to say it better. And today what we're going to do, Periscope family, is, Sister Dodie, how you doing? Good to see you. We're going to read this piece. Oh, let me turn it around. We're going to get our plates of food in a minute, so we're going to shut down Periscope. If you got any questions, comments, statements, anything that comes to mind for you about any of what we discussed so far, feel free. Y'all share it. We're having a discussion together. If you hear something that you agree with, go ahead, double tap, and I'll just interpret it as your amen, your virtual Periscope amen. God bless you. But what we're going to do in a few moments is grab some food, and we're going to turn on the video, so we're going to shut down the Periscope in a few. But we are reading this. We're going to read this article when we get back from the food. Jesus hasn't saved us. The young black women returning to ancestral religions. Jesus, I know. You should see the faces, Periscope. They like, oh, wait, Pastor, wait a minute, what you doing? I know. Jesus hasn't saved us. The young black women returning to ancestral religions. I think this is a very insightful article. I'm challenged by it, and I have some challenges for it too, though. But I think it's worthy of our consideration and our time, and for us to use our mental muscles to chew on this, and where there is meat, let us digest, and where there might be a bone, just go ahead. You know what to do with bones, y'all. We've been dealing with bones a long time. Just put the bone to the side. But I believe, as I have read this piece, that there's a whole lot of meat that will be helpful for not only our individual growth, but also helpful to churches in general. Because as I think it was Deaconess Edge who might have mentioned this, but she talked about one of her younger relatives who had left the church, and they didn't know, there was some kind of discord between, her family and this younger relative as they were trying to kind of figure out, what is she doing? They said she just has different spiritual practices. And Deaconess Edge, and I don't think she'd mind me sharing, but Deaconess Edge said that since starting this class and going through this study, it's helped her to understand her younger relative better and to begin creating a bridge between that younger relative and herself. I think at the very least, what this class and course could do is to give us the wherewithal to build bridges to people who might worship different, might believe different, or people who are ready to throw away the church in general. Because one of the things that you'll find in this article is that there was a person who, had a whole lot of questions that the church wasn't answering. And not just not answering, questions that the church wasn't even entertaining, right? And if you want to turn somebody off, if you want to run folk away, don't even have room for their questions. Shut their questions down. They'll be gone soon. Because you're giving a signal that their curiosity cannot be fed. And eventually what they might assume is, you don't even know what you're talking about. Because if my question, and I'm 8 years old, if my question scares you and I'm 8, if you ain't got no response and I'm 8, then what's the point of me sticking around till I'm 9 up in here? I'm going somewhere else where questions don't scare you, dog. The issues don't make you run away. What we try to do here at Pleasant Hope is to create safe space and place for study, serious study, question, inquiry, and discussion. So let's get some food, and we'll come back after the food and dive into this article together. It's going to be fun. 3, 6, 9, 11, 12, 13. We already prayed already? I'm just going to. Let me bless the food. Gracious God, thank you so much for the blessing of this day and the blessing of the food that has been provided. Please, Lord, I pray that you bless both food and fellowship, that it might strengthen us to continue on our journey. Bless the hands that prepared this food. And God, I pray you keep us ever mindful as well of those who do not have food or family to share it with. Help us to be angels for them. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Let's eat. Periscope, and give me a moment. In fact, let me shut this down real quick. Okay, Periscope, let's talk for a second, because I just want to thank God for each of you and the ways in which you've been hanging out with us in this study. As you can see, our study is a little bit different here at Pleasant Hope. We are serious about study. We want to go deeper in understanding our faith. We want to go deeper in understanding our faith's connections with other expressions of spirituality. And ultimately, we want to go deeper and draw closer in our relationship with God as well. So for those who are watching, thank you so very much for tuning in. As you'll see on our page, on our Periscope page, we have about 8 or 9 other broadcasts on this course and topic. Christianity through African lenses. I shared already my personal belief as I've been inspired by people like Dr. Ralph Watkins and so many others in this arena, that Christianity is an African traditional religion. And I see it all in the Bible, and I see it in the practice of our faith as well. From pouring libation, in the Bible it's called drink offering, to honoring ancestors, ancestor veneration, which is not only in the Bible, but also in the practice of Christianity by a great number of American African Christians, to symbolic rituals like baptism, to communion, to a whole list and host of other things. I see the essential elements of African spirituality and African religions in how African people practice Christianity too. And so it's something that's super exciting to me, very interesting, and I'll continue studying the Yoruba, the Akan, so many, Santeria, so many other religions as well, because I'm on hot pursuit of truth. I'm inspired, I'm invigorated by it, and I will not be limited by very narrow and rigid expressions and understandings of what Christianity is. Furthermore, I do not give the West, I do not give white theology, European Christianity, I do not give it the authority to define for me what is appropriate and inappropriate Christianity. What is Christianity with authority and what is invalid or heretical. The West does not have that license nor right to decide for everybody how this faith should show up. That's my view. And so with that view, then I and we have great opportunity to explore the roots of this great faith, to get closer to the essence of it as our ancestors understood it, and to get further and further away from the perverted theology, the selfish and self-centered theology, oftentimes that springs from Western conceptions of Christianity. So, if you have any questions, comments, statements, if you have a disagreement, even whatever you might have, I just welcome those. I enjoy robust dialogue and conversation, and just thankful for all of you who are maybe tuning in during this session live, or who may be watching this later on. Just appreciate your sharing too. Check our church out at pleasanthope.org. That's pleasanthope.org. See our website and learn more about our worship times and our study times. We're also very active in the community, so we invite you to come and connect with us, whether around food justice, whether around our Freedom School, a whole host of things that we're doing in the community. We invite your partnership, whether you're a Christian or not. We invite your partnership to come, and let's do what we can to be the best reflections of righteousness, the best reflections of God's love in this world. Thanks again so much. Thanks for tuning in. Spread the word. Share this with your friends. Let's keep the conversation going. Peace.